Welcome to the No Clue podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Tyler. Mike is off today, but I'm here with Tyler again with our men's basketball coverage. March Madness is going. The Final Four is set. We're excited. Duke, Carolina, Villanova, Kansas. Let's get into it. First, let's start. Tell me about some of your predictions from earlier in the tournament, the last few times. Obviously, I wasn't here last episode with you. So tell me about
Yep.
some of your predictions. Did they work out? Did they not? Tell me how
So
it went.
basically, the one thing that did work out was the fact that I said I'll probably be wrong. And I said a lot of times what happens is, your great aunt is the person that wins the bracket pool. And that's probably the kind of thing that's going to happen this year. But
Yeah.
for me, my two biggest favorites to win it all were Auburn and Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
So two big misses there. Neither one of them made the Elite Eight.
Right.
Um, I did mention that Carolina had a path. I said I like their matchup against Baylor. If they could get
Yep.
past Baylor, they'd have a good path.
Yep.
Duke, that was definitely a miss on me, and that's probably because I don't like Duke. But they have
Yeah, a little
the
bias there.
most
It's okay.
the most talented team in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
If not the most, then definitely top two or three.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach K's final year is just adds another piece to that puzzle.
Yeah.
So I think I definitely picked Gonzaga out of that region, but I also mentioned UConn, who got upset game one against Teddy Allen and New
Mm-hmm.
Mexico State. Um, so the North Carolina's region with Baylor worked out how I thought it would. I thought Purdue losing to St. Peter's was just a complete shock.
Yeah. For everybody.
Um,
For everybody.
that's inexcusable. That really
Yeah.
is. I mean, you had a week to prepare for St. Peter's. Kentucky lost to them opening round. That stuff happens. It's still
Mm-hmm.
embarrassing, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But for Purdue to lose after a week of preparation in the Sweet 16 against St. Peter's, I don't want to take anything away from what St. Peter's did. I mean, they showed
Right.
up and they earned it. But for Matt Painter and Purdue to lose that game is inexcusable. So
Yeah.
they would have played North Carolina to go to the Final Four, and they very well may have been in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how my predictions went. Not the best. My brackets, I have one that's doing good, but mostly not great.
Mm-hmm. I
That's
don't
how it
think
goes.
anybody's. There can't be any left. There's no way.
Right. No. That ended in the first round, the
Yeah, I
second
was
day
say
of the
yeah.
first round.
St. Peter's
So
probably, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about the other side, the Kansas Villanova? Are you shocked at all?
So Villanova did exactly what Villanova does. They just played, grinded out, winning
Yeah.
basketball, really team basketball, winning basketball. So I'm not surprised that Villanova's there. I'm not going to say that I picked them to go to the Final Four because they're not the most talented team, but
Mm-hmm.
they have adequate talent and they have a great coach and a great program, and that's what happens when you have great coaches and great programs.
Yeah.
And Kansas has a good team. I don't think that. Well, now they're in the Final Four, so they're 2 games away from winning the national championship. You said you've watched Kansas quite a bit this year. Ochai
Yeah.
Abachi has been non-existent, really,
Mm-hmm.
in the tournament, and they're still finding ways to win. Their second half against Miami was highly executed in every facet, defensively especially.
Yep. And he's
So if they
taken
can
a
play like
huge
that,
setback as far as scoring. Yeah.
yeah, I mean he's been, and they've found a way to still win.
Mm-hmm.
So that's encouraging for Kansas fans for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
I thought Auburn would be there, man. I really did, and that would have been a great game. But Miami outplayed Auburn. Auburn looked terrible. They peaked too early, and
yeah,
that's happened with several teams. But Auburn really peaked too early in the season, and it hurt them in March.
that's been a kind of a stain on Bruce Pearl's career, like all the time. His team always looks electric during the regular season, and then all of a sudden, here comes the tournament, and they just fall off. It's happened a lot, and I was a
Yeah,
big fan of Tennessee when he was there. Had some of my favorite players of college basketball all time, but every year I just stopped getting my hopes up, wanting to see my players in the tournament because he'd find a way to get knocked off. But
and
they
he just
should have
got a
won.
big contract extension.
They should have won the year against Virginia, but we're not gonna talk about that today. But Yeah. Yeah. He deserves it. He deserves it. He's been coaching his butt off in the regular season for sure.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's hard
Okay.
to, I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
hard to hang a coach's legacy or resume on the fact that he can't get it done in March because you have 95% of the season is played before March. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to look at that. But ultimately, that 5% of the season in March is where legends are made. I mean, Jay Wright, he's a great regular season coach too. But when you look at Jay Wright, you think winner, you
Yep.
think champion. And when you look at Bruce Pearl, you don't necessarily think the same things. So hopefully Bruce Pearl can get it done. I'm not a huge fan of him, but still, I think, like you say, he's a good regular season coach. He's a good coach, and he deserves success in March at some
Yep.
point.
Funny thing about Jay Wright, he's had way better teams than the teams that he's taken to the Final Four. Like
Yeah,
Scotty Reynolds' teams, like he had 3 years on his team where I thought they had the best team in all the college basketball, and they get bounced off early all the time. And he's just found a way. He's become a better recruiter over time. His team looks more like a balanced NBA team more than they do a college team sometimes, because
yeah,
there's no like standout player. It's just a bunch of guys who really know how to fit into his system. So
yep,
he gets it done. I understand why he makes it as far as he does all the time. Now,
yeah. I mean, when you watch their games in the tournament, they make teams that they play against play Villanova basketball.
absolutely.
They dictate the pace. They dictate how the game is played, and he doesn't always win. But when you do that, you put yourself in a good shot, in a good position to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so tell me some of your favorite games thus far in the tournament.
All right,
Which
so
ones really stood out to you?
the two times I've been on the podcast before, I've either bashed North Carolina or I haven't talked much about North Carolina. Maybe I was trying to keep my bias out of it, but this time I have to talk about North Carolina. Their games against Baylor and UCLA
Mm-hmm.
are two of the best games of the tournament. The Baylor game was unreal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you should have seen the things that went on in my house during that game because UNC was up 26 points. Brady Manning
Yeah.
gets ejected.
Yep.
So 26-point lead with, I think it was like 12 minutes to go. And when he got ejected, I wasn't worried, but it took me about 45 seconds to get worried because you could tell Baylor was just feeding. And so they cut the
Mm-hmm.
lead to like 14. And I said, man, the clock better run out because if it doesn't, Baylor will be right there. And that's just what happened. And Kenjo got an and one with like 14 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, I said, that's game. There's no way Carolina wins if this game goes to overtime.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it
I
went to
felt the same
overtime.
way.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it was just an incredible basketball
Yep. Yep.
to watch as a fan. I
That
also have
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you got it.
Michigan State Duke, extremely high level game. Michigan
Yes.
State played has to be their best game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
They were hitting their 3-point percentage was over 50 for sure.
Yeah.
They hit a lot of tough shots, and then Roach and Duke just stepped up to the plate and played a great last 5 minutes. So that was a great game. And then the Gonzaga Memphis game, I really thought I loved the way Memphis played.
Mm-hmm.
That was an excellent game, and Timmy just took over, willed his team to a win. And when he did that, I said, okay, maybe this Gonzaga team is for real. Maybe it is their time. And
Mm-hmm.
then they play Arkansas, and that happened. So
And
those are my games.
that was probably that was like a milestone moment for Timmy to me. And we're about to talk about our favorite performances. That was one of them for me. He just uh the leadership. I think Gonzaga a lot of times because they get a lot of freshmen in. Lately, they've been getting a lot of blue chip freshmen in. They kind
Yep,
of struggle in leadership most of the time. They kind of come in and the chemistry is usually off early in the season. But like we say on here all the time, they have the easiest conference probably with all the uh, contending teams every year. So they
absolutely.
work it out by the end of the season. And still, a lot of times when they get in the tournament, I still struggle to see who their leader is. And I think that's part of why they lose so often. But I mean, Timmy stepped up big time in that Memphis game.
Absolutely. And playing Duran was guarding him. I'm pretty sure Duran was guarding him. But Duran, it really frustrated me because I wanted to see him on the court. And he just made two terrible fouls. One of them was 40 feet away from the basket. I just don't get it. If he would have been in the game more often, that game may have gone the other way. But that's part of basketball. You have to learn, and he's a freshman, and he made a couple of freshman mistakes right there, and that may have cost Memphis a chance to make a run because I really loved the way they were playing. I mean, they would have given Arkansas a run for their money next round for sure.
Oh, absolutely. That Baylor North Carolina game, I think North Carolina really completely raised Akinjo's draft stock in that game. Like if if the NBA wasn't looking at him before, by the end of the second half of that game, he's definitely got on a lot of teams' radars, I think, because he stepped up huge. Big shots, big defensive plays. He just looks fantastic out there.
He took over. I mean, Sochan played well. Meyer hit one shot, but that whole Baylor team and the way games are officiated often help a team's play style. And Baylor, when they made their comeback, they were allowed to get more physical, and Baylor's a physical team. Yeah. And so when they were pressing North Carolina, number one, didn't handle the press well at all. That's their fault. But number two, Baylor could press and play tough defense, and Akinjo was the leader of that. He had several steals. He made several big three-point shots. And like you say, he just really almost willed that team to a win. Thankfully, he didn't for me, but because that would have been one of the worst losses for Carolina's program. I mean, to see Brady Manick go out like that, would have been tough for sure.
Yeah. I agree. I completely agree. So for the most part, we talked about Carolina's journey to the Final Four already.
Yeah.
Well, is there any more performances, by the way, before we keep going?
Well, I have a couple of individual performances. Do you want to go there? Or?
Yeah. Tell me.
Well, Caleb Love against UCLA.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you got to catch that.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I mean, a lot of times during the regular season, I would get upset with this shot selection. And those same things happen, but bad shots turn to good shots whenever you make them. And whenever he got cooking in the second half, because we didn't have offense, North Carolina did not have offense going. And I looked over at one of my cousin's friends I was watching the game with, and I said, man, honestly, give the ball to Caleb Love. Just let him do what he does. And that's the first time I've said that this year, and they did, and it worked. And his supreme confidence level that never wavers is a talent. It's a skill. Not many people have that. It's like the Mamba mentality type thing. Yep. Just, I don't care how many times I miss. He was at one point in that game, he was 1 for 8, 2 for 8, something like that. And he just kept playing tough, kept playing hard. When his shot started falling, he hit one from the logo.
Yeah.
From straight away. So that was a remarkable performance. Number one. Number two, Teddy Allen against UConn. He put up 37 points in a 70-63 game. And that was just, I had heard about Teddy Allen a lot. I had him on my fantasy team this year, season long, but I haven't been able to watch him. And to be able to watch him, I expected him to be more selfish because he gets so many numbers. He averages 23, 24 points a game. And in that game, at least, he wasn't selfish. He passed off to his teammates because he was getting double teamed a lot and still got 37 points. Just a remarkable performance there from him for sure.
Yep. And you from New Mexico State, by the way, so people know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so individual wise, that's probably the two that stand out. Cam McGusty played excellent against Kansas in the first half, but the second half was terrible. And Arthur Kaluma from Creighton, I really enjoy watching his game. He put up 24 and 12 against Kansas in the Sweet 16 game. I know that must have been round of 32. Yes, round of 32 game. He put up 24 and 12 after they lost Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's been a great player this season. He tore his ACL in round one.
Mm-hmm.
Kaluma stepped up, hit so many big shots. He was great in that game. And I actually tweeted out, I said, Arthur Kaluma may have turned himself into a one and done in one because his athleticism's off the charts. He's 6'9". He's got a great shot. He made 3 or 4 3
Mm-hmm.
He put himself on the radar with that game. Look for him next year at Creighton.
Cool. Okay. So we kind of talked about North Carolina's path to the Final Four already. So let's dig into the other side. Let's dig into Villanova, and we talked about Duke a lot too, pretty much. Villanova, a little bit, but what do you think is the reason they're where they are? How do you think they got to the Final Four overall?
Well, by watching Villanova play, the most simple answer to that is Jermaine Samuels.
Mm-hmm.
He's been outstanding.
Absolutely.
And losing because Colin Gillespie, I mean, look, Colin Gillespie is a coach on the floor. He's an extension of the coach. He's a great player to have out there, and he's a great player. But
and
this
Wright
tournament
always has one of those.
Yes, at the tournament though, you can't give Gillespie a ton of credit for Villanova's success, in my opinion, unless you want to talk about intangibles, because he hasn't played great, really.
Right.
So that's maybe encouraging for Villanova fans heading into the weekend, is that Gillespie has not played well. But the one Villanova is Justin Moore, who has been a leader all season for them for his ACL, for his Achilles, and the Elite Eight game, and will be out for the rest of the season. So they're a thin team, just like North Carolina. They play 6 guys, so you're going to need someone. So that hurts. He's a great point shooter, great player. Jermaine Samuels is going to have to step up. I think Caleb Daniels is the guy to look for because they'll let Gillespie bring the ball up. Him and Moore kind of switched off a little bit, but Daniels is going to have to shoulder some of that scoring load. Justin Moore averaged 12, 13 points a game this season. So playing a team like Kansas, they're going to need Kansas to not have their best game, and they're going to need to dictate the pace of play like they always do and dictate the style. And if they do, they have a chance. But I am concerned about Villanova this weekend.
Without Moore, mainly?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Only because they don't have Moore.
Yeah.
That's a huge loss.
So Kansas, and we talked about them a lot before the tournament started. And I think you guys mentioned them a little bit in the last podcast. So we talk about their versatility a lot. They're kind of stacked when it comes to athleticism.
Yeah.
Would you say that's how they got to the Final Four mainly? Like, what do you think is their key to success throughout
their
the
key
tournament?
to success has been Remy Martin off the bench.
Absolutely. He's been killing it.
He's been great, and he was hurt all year. Even when he's healthy, I thought he was going to be a non-factor. I thought one guy, talking about selfishness, one guy that I watched at Arizona State was Remy Martin, and I thought he was a very selfish player. I saw him give up defensively a lot. I saw him quit. I saw him take a lot of bad shots when they were down by a couple points, and Hurley really hated that. Yeah. But when you look at what Remy Martin has done for Kansas, he has accepted his role, which his role is to score off the bench. His role is to every tournament game. So he's been great. That's been their number one key because, like we about, Abaji has been off. So he's been great.
Yeah. Yep. And he's been, every time they put him in front of a less experienced guard, he's exposed them pretty much every time. Every freshman guard that goes out there and checks him, he gets buckets. So he's going to be a big key, especially if Villanova has to, reach off the bench. And I mean, they're going to have to find someone who can guard him and be ready to guard him the whole game.
No doubt. Yep. Jalen Wilson for Kansas has been my favorite player on that team. So he'll be a big part too. He's grabbing over 12 rebounds in the NCAA tournament, and his shot attempts are up. He's shooting like 15 shots a game. He hasn't connected as well as you'd like to see, but I think he has a good chance to start hitting because he's a great player. So David McCormick played the first 5 minutes of the second half against Miami, and Kansas went on like a 18-4 run
Yep.
with McCormick.
Yeah.
Then he didn't play the rest of the game. I think that Self is going to look at that this week. Look at the pace that Villanova plays. The pace is more conducive to big men.
Mm-hmm.
McCormick had been struggling with the injury as well, but now I think that Saturday night may be a David McCormick game just because of the style of the game. He's going to be a really big factor because Lightfoot off the bench is a fine. He's adequate, but going up against Samuels and Dixon is a solid player for Villanova. Going up against those two, McCormick is going to be very important.
Yep.
So look for that too.
I think Kansas is a really underrated rebounding team in general. I don't think they get enough credit for their rebounding.
Brown is a great rebounding guard.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So let's get to it, man. What do you think about Duke Carolina? Who you got? Obviously we know who you want. But who do you have? Actually, no. Scratch all that. Let's save them for last because we have more to talk about there.
All right.
Villanova, Kansas, who do you have? We talked about what it's going to take for each team to win. Who do you think is going to take it?
Yep, I've got Kansas. No doubt about it in my mind because the Justin Moore injury, it would have been a great game. And it still may be a great game. I've always heard that when a star player goes down, a team can find a way for one game. But then the second game, they play out the star player, it's tougher. Right. So that may play true here. But I just think that the loss of Justin Moore will be too much for Villanova. And Kansas, depending on how well they play, if they play like they played in the second half against Miami, I don't care if Justin Moore's healthy. I'm taking Kansas. But I do think Kansas will make it to the championship game over there. What do you?
I'm going with Kansas too. I think that I think they're more versatile with how the game is going to go. Like you said, Bill Self can look at how Villanova is playing and he can make the adjustments with his team, with his roster to how to what would be best in the game. I think if Villanova is going to run a gun, Kansas can do that. If Villanova slows it down, Kansas can do that. But on the flip side, if Kansas were to switch it off, I'm not confident in Villanova to be able to adjust to a hot run by Kansas.
Yep.
So
you're right. And it's going to come down to Gillespie. Gillespie's going to have to play really the game of his life.
Yeah.
For Villanova to have a chance.
I agree. So Duke and Carolina, man. Coach K's final game against North Carolina. Now we know for a fact the final game against North Carolina. How do you feel, first of all?
Not great. Not because I don't think Carolina's going to win. I don't feel great because winning in Cameron in Coach K's last home game was so euphoric. And I was like, okay, that's the perfect way to end the Duke UNC rivalry with Coach K. That's the perfect way to close that chapter. Let's move on. That's 2022 and great.
Yeah. The basketball gods were not done with us.
No, not at all. I was happy with the way that it was going to end. Who wasn't happy with the way that it was going to end was Duke, their fans, their players. And that's one thing that does concern me for Saturday night's game. The motivation can get higher because it is the final. But Duke is hungry. Paolo said whenever they won the ACC semifinal game against Miami, they said, who would you like to see, Paolo, Virginia Tech or North Carolina? And he said he wants North Carolina. And I've never seen a player say something like that. So really home game. That's something that you shouldn't really let happen, and they did. So they've got some atonement to do on Saturday night, I believe.
Right. Neutral court.
Yep.
You asked me a question before we started recording. You go ahead and ask it.
Yeah, so you're not from North Carolina originally, but you lived in North Carolina.
And the fans,
I want to know,
do the fans know you're from North Carolina? Have you mentioned that?
Probably not. No. So born and bred North Carolina. Been around this rivalry my whole life. I've got my mom, sister, and grandparents, big Duke fans.
Yeah.
Then my other side, big Carolina fans. So it's really a nightmare for me. If Duke finds a way to win, it's just doomsday. So, anyways, I just would like to know for you, somebody that did grow up in North Carolina, what the rivalry means to you and what you've seen in the rivalry.
Oh man. So growing up, I was a huge Tar Heel fan. I mean, I had Tar Heel comforter and bed sheets at one point when I was living in Texas, elementary school, like fourth grade, fifth grade. It was always UNC for me. I remember we
Yep.
visited a few times when I was a kid, but I really liked I genuinely liked some of the Duke players. Like for me, from the outside, there's no like, I didn't get the, if I like North Carolina, I can't like anything about Duke thing,
You
right?
have to
Because
hate Duke. Yeah.
because I'm not, like you said, I'm not from North Carolina, so I didn't really understand that was like a thing until
Yep.
obviously until I got older and started like looking at colleges and stuff. Um, so back in the day, my first experience with the Duke Carolina thing was JJ Redick was the first person I remember watching at Duke. It was Daniel Ewing, Sean Dockery, and JJ Redick against this would be the Ray Felton, Rashad McCants, Sean
Sean
May,
May. Yep.
yeah, Marvin Williams team.
Great team.
So, and I love that. I love that team. So those days were the first ones I remember, and I remember how hype it was. I remember all the hazing of JJ. People were talking about his sister in the stands, and it was just getting real disrespectful there. Then later on, I
Absolutely.
remember, of course, the Hansborough, the Gerald Henderson incident, the Danny Green and
Greg
uh,
Paulus.
Paulus and Shire. Oh, those guys, man. But UNC, it was Lawson, Ellington, Green, Hansborough. See, you see, I was a UNC fan because I remember the full UNC team. I
Right.
only
You're
remember like
rattling them
two or
off.
three
Yeah.
players from Duke. Yeah. Um, but yeah, man, I was always intense. It was always amazing to see Roy Williams and Coach K going at it all the time. It was awesome.
Yep.
Growing up, I want to say I saw more North Carolina wins, but it when you see him so many times, and obviously I'm not that old, but older people than me, when you see it so many times, the big moments hit you a lot harder, right? Like the Austin Rivers shot hit me like, I was like, wow, that's so crazy. In this game, are you serious? Like that kind of thing.
Yep.
Uh, but this, man, to see it come into an end with Coach K, I wish Roy and Coach K got to end at the same time, because they had, like, I guess the most battles for Coach K
That's the
from
only thing that
Carolina.
could make this game bigger.
Yeah, it is. It's the one and only thing. Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm glad Coach K can end on it with some closure of a win or a loss here. Really,
Yeah.
the older I've gotten, the more neutral I've become, because once I went to North Carolina, I realized that I had to be more neutral, because like once I moved out there, my what was it, my sophomore year, I
Yeah.
realized I had to be a lot more neutral, because I would never be as much of a UNC fan as you guys, and I would
Right.
never hate UNC enough to be a Duke fan. So, uh,
That makes perfect sense, honestly.
yeah. So I had to do it, and then once like choosing college came around, and with me playing basketball and everything, I had to. I tried my best to be as neutral as possible. So now,
Right.
Carolina's teams have obviously, I mean, there's no secret they've fallen off for the most part, as far as recruiting goes, and like
Right.
having stacked teams probably since,
2017, probably.
yeah,
Um,
like the Marcus Page years was probably like the last year like I really was like confident that they would be good every year.
yeah.
So uh hey, I always had a problem. I will say this. I've always had a problem with Coach K because I kind of think over time I saw how Coach K really changed his recruiting strategy, whether it was for the better or for worse. I saw him kind of bend his morals. I would say the morals that he used to
What he
really,
stood on.
yeah, what he used to really emphasize back in the day. I see that he's thrown all that out the window for winning, and
Yep.
that never really sit right with me. Not that I'm a major Coach K hater. Anyone who listened to our podcast from before, you probably do already think I am one, but I'm really not. It's just I always just thought that was strange. Like, oh, we don't recruit this kind of player. I'll never have this guy. And then all of a sudden now we have a full team of guys that you used to say you wouldn't have recruited.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
him doing that for winning, yeah, it's cool for the school, for the fans, and yeah, you giving more guys opportunity to play at Duke, but obviously Roy never did that, and we see
Right.
what changed. So kind
The
of
one thing I'll say on that point, which I shouldn't defend Coach K ever.
yeah.
Roy said, "Hey, I tried." He said, "I tried to get the 5-star guys, the top 5 recruits." But Roy would have never gone to the extent that Coach K and Kentucky have gone to.
Yeah.
He would have never gone that far. But he did try to get top 5 recruits, number 1 players in the nation, and he had trouble with that. Now, if you want to get into the reasons of why he had trouble, we could, but none of that is proven. Anyways, I will say that everyone tries to get top recruits. If you're a great enough program, in the spotlight enough, coach Team USA basketball, then you have more success getting top tier recruits than others. For sure. So I just want to know who you're pulling for on Saturday night because you haven't made it clear.
I'm pulling for North Carolina because they're the underdog in this, and because I do kind of want Coach K to go out on the sour note. I'm not gonna lie, I do.
Yep.
I want him to go out on the loss to North Carolina. I want him to think about that. I want him to pull a Tom Brady, be like, actually, I do need to come back because I got more to do. But no, I'm pulling for North Carolina. I think North Carolina is hungry. I think they're fiery. I think Duke is spoiled. I think the team is spoiled. I mean, they've won some good games, and some of the games I think they've won, I think the other team lost more than Duke won.
Yeah.
So I do think they're coming in a little bit spoiled. And I think North Carolina just wants to win, man. I see all those guys. I see no hangups. They're humble. They just want to go out there and play their hardest, and I like that. I'm always for that. You know me. You know the kind of player I was. I leave it out on the floor. If you want to prove something, go prove it. I'm always down for that. So I'm taking Carolina. Yeah.
Well, I have to say that if an Austin Rivers type moment happens on Saturday,
oh man, that would be insane.
Yeah, you may not hear from me for a while if that happens. So hopefully we can avoid that.
The world would probably stop turning if that happens.
It really would, and especially in Central North Carolina, the world would. We would have to definitely take a few days to recover from that. Maybe shut down all businesses on Monday.
For sure. Chapel Hill is closed after that. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully we can avoid that. But as far as the game goes, I mean, I do agree with what you said. You made some great points. I mean, and hopefully you're right. Hopefully North Carolina is the hungrier team because oftentimes that's who wins. I think the number one thing to watch for, North Carolina found success in Cameron by putting Brady Manick on Paolo, and more or less they wanted to make him a jump shooter, and he's actually shot extremely well in the NCAA tournament. So if that continues, North Carolina's in trouble. I don't buy his jump shot. He's a 30% shooter from 3 this year. And in the tournament, he's shooting 50%. So if you think Saturday night he will regress to the mean, then that is good for North Carolina. But the thing to watch for is, what is North Carolina's approach? Do they want to slow down or stop Paolo? Or do they say, okay, Paolo, you do your thing. You get 25 points, that's fine. But we're not going to let AJ Griffin shoot the ball. We're going to put Leaky Black on him. We're not going to let him touch it if we can help it. And if and Jeremy Roach has come on as of late, but he's not a great scorer. If you look at the stats throughout the NCAA tournament, he's made a lot of big shots, but he hasn't
Yeah.
made a lot of shots in general.
Right.
So if you can shut down AJ Griffin, I think that's the key to the game. And Paolo Banchero missing 3-point shots and forcing him to take outside shots. So
North Carolina is a much better rebounding team to me too.
Yeah, one and done. Make him shoot jump shots and then get the rebound. And avoiding foul trouble for North Carolina is huge. They have no depth. Puff Johnson is not quite strong enough to play in a physical game like that, in my opinion. I mean, you can put him out there for a few minutes, but Dontrez Styles can give you a few minutes, like I said about Puff. But if we have extended foul trouble like Baycott did in Chapel Hill, that's going to be a problem because Mark Williams is, number one, he's great around the rim on the defensive end, but he's also great around the rim on the offensive end. So Baycott's going to need to be in.
If Baycott gets in foul trouble, it's a wrap. It's over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I hope he knows that, which I'm sure he does, because you've noticed throughout the year, Mark Williams has played much better interior defense than Baycott. That doesn't mean to me that Mark Williams is a more gifted defensive player. It just means to me that Armando Baycott knows how important it is for him to be on the floor.
Yeah.
It's very important for Mark Williams to be on the floor too, but they do have Theo John, who's 7 foot 260, right, that they can throw in for spot minutes. Carolina doesn't have a big body behind Armando. So he understands he needs to stay on the floor. He understands that sometimes Coach Davis would rather him not contest a shot than contest a shot and pick up a foul. So hopefully if Armando gets to halftime with less fouls than Mark Williams, North Carolina will probably be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I agree. I also want to commend Hubert Davis's progression throughout this year, because I mean I think it was pretty widely accepted that he started the year off rough, that I think it was looking ugly for him as a coach. Not that obviously it's it is his first year, right?
It is his first year, but you're right. Yeah. Everyone was skeptical.
Yeah. Obviously, they weren't thinking his job in any jeopardy or anything like that. I just think they thought, all right, it's gonna look ugly for the next few years. It's a transition time. We just chalked this up for a botched year. He's just learning on the job.
Yep.
But we see that as much more than that. I think he trusts his staff a lot more, because the staff is the same as it was as Roy. I still see Sean May over there. I see a lot of the guys who
Brad Frederick, Eric Hoots,
Yep, who've been there for a long time. He sent me a letter, by the way, when I was in middle school.
Who, Hoots?
Yeah. But I see a lot of the same staff, so I think the same culture is there. So I think that throughout the season, I saw more collaborating with them as a team and getting better and better, man. I mean, they look great. And like you said, peaking at the right time. I think North Carolina is peaking at the right time, which is this tournament, because they had a lot of games that they easily could have lost.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought they were an NCAA tournament team, but I'm not going to say I thought they were going to make the Final Four, because when you watch them play, I mean, it was tough at times, and they found their core five. I think Dawson Garcia leaving, it was for a family matter, and I hope that gets situated. But I think Dawson Garcia leaving actually may have, depth-wise, it hurt North Carolina, but having Brady Manick on the floor for 40 minutes, which he would have never been on the floor that much. He was going to play 25 to 30 minutes. Having him on the floor for 40 minutes changed North Carolina's season, and moving R.J. Davis to point guard and letting Caleb Love play off the ball changed their season as well.
It did.
Those are two big things.
Absolutely. Real quick, we didn't get to mention this much, but so you're picking North Carolina, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got to.
So we didn't mention this, but looking forward, obviously the draft is coming up later. Some of the prospects we've been talking about every time you're on here, how do you feel about their performances throughout the tournament? Chet, Ivy, Smith. We mentioned just shortly throughout we've been talking. Obviously, some of them had a lot shorter times than others. So
Right.
What do you think about
Well,
them as far as their draft stock? I don't think it really changes their draft stock, but when teams are looking to draft them based on the tournament performance, what do you think they're saying? The NBA's
well,
teams.
speaking strictly on draft stock, I think sometimes it can be worse for a guy to make it deep in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Like Abachi, I mean, I think people know kind of who he is. He'll probably go late lottery, late mid first round.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys we're talking about, we didn't get to see much of them.
Right.
Jabari Smith, they lost. Auburn lost in the second round.
Yep.
Gonzaga lost in the Sweet 16. Ivy
Yep.
lost in the Sweet 16. So as far as those performances go, personally, I think Jabari Smith played well. I think he showed because really you don't want to look at the totality of how he played in the game. You just want to
Mm-hmm.
look at okay, the things that people say he does well. Are they there? Is he showing spurts? His dunk on Brandon Huffman was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So Jabari Smith played well. I think he did not hurt himself at all in the
Right.
NCAA tournament as far as draft stock goes. Uh, Ivy, I mean, I think really it was more game plan botched than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he didn't help himself, but Purdue just against St. Peter's, they knew that they were small. Their biggest guy is like 6'8".
Yep.
Okay. And you've got Zach Edey at 7'2". So like we mentioned before, Ivy didn't have space
Mm-hmm.
to do what he's capable of. So really I put the loss on Matt Painter and Zach Edey more than anything. So I wish we would have gotten to see more of Ivy. I wish we would have gotten to see him with more space to
Yeah.
operate. And then with Chet, I mean, I may be wrong, and I know I agree with what you said last time we were on about how Chet can be such a mismatch on the offensive end, even though he's right now, and
Mm-hmm.
defensively he can be a liability at times. But
Yeah.
man, I was when I watched him play the last game of the regular season. I think it was against San Francisco. He played outstanding. I was like, this guy's the number one pick far and away. In the tournament,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't see that. He got in
Right.
foul trouble, seemed overwhelmed. Long term, I don't think it means anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I wish we could have seen more from him in the tournament for sure. I mean, he didn't really shoot from outside much. He didn't his mark on the game as much as I thought that he would.
Right. Right. He's someone that I really wouldn't mind him staying one more year. I really wouldn't. I mean, I think if he
Yeah.
stayed another year, I think he'd be able to mature, get a full year of college conditioning, college, getting his body right with the college equipment, college trainers, obviously, and a full year of just maturing, playing with other really high level basketball players.
Yep.
Um, but obviously, he's not. Everybody wants to go get that money, of course, and
Right.
I get that. But I think he's someone that may be a project if he does go to the league.
That's the way I'm leaning right now, to be honest with you. So, and then Paolo, the only guy that has played that is still playing,
Yeah.
um, he's if you buy the jump shot, if you buy that, it's hard to argue with what he's done in the NCAA tournament. I mean, he's really performed well. I
Mm-hmm.
think he needs to improve on his ball handling. He needs to get a few more moves. He needs to get stronger because he's so strong at age 18. He's so strong, and he's playing against, for the most part, young men. But when you go to the league, um, he relies on bully ball sometimes in college, and he should. I
Right.
mean, he's a big kid,
He's a
but
mismatch for sure.
he's going to have to find other ways to score in the NBA, and he has so far in the NCAA tournament. Whether you buy it or not, if he can do
Mm-hmm.
that in the league, he'll have success immediately. If not, it may take him a little while. Everybody has a learning curve, or a lot of people do have a learning curve.
Yeah.
When they get to the league.
Yeah, and it also depends on situations he goes to. He may not go to a team that needs him right away because of obviously the draft pick trades in the NBA have been nuts. So he may
Yeah,
not go to a team where he gets 20 shots a game right away. But then again, he may. So it's it's two different situations. Like we see Cade Cade went to Detroit, where now he's playing point. He has the ball in his hands more than anyone else on the team. There's a lot of room for him to make errors and him bounce back from them. He doesn't really have anything to penalize him for because the team is not looking to win. They're not contending. So you get in that kind of situation. Then you get in a situation where kind of like on the Warriors where all right, Kaminga's coming off the bench. He gets maybe 8 minutes a game here and there, more now so than he did when he first started. But some games he wouldn't play at all. And when he did get out there,
Right.
he had a chance to make 3 shots and then see how he looks. Okay, he didn't make the 3 shots. Let's get him out of there. Let's move on.
Yep.
So I doubt if Banchero goes to a situation like that, but he might. He might, because
Yeah.
I think if a team like Detroit had gotten Kaminga would be starting. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So
And
you can develop.
you can develop from both ways.
You
You
can.
can develop great, but I do tend to think that being thrown into the fire in the NBA is invaluable. I mean, as long as guys are being coached up
Mm-hmm.
the right way, a situation like Cunningham for his personal development, I think is going to be really good for him long term.
Yeah, I agree. I
So
agree. Yep. Yeah, I mean, even look at guys like Poole, Jordan Poole, who
exactly.
was not like a really, really, really high pick, but he was a good draft pick. They sat him on the bench first year for the most part, got in here and there. Now he's starting and had 38 last night. I mean, so
I
it's
did not see that coming, man. I really didn't.
I was a big fan of Poole. That year I picked Michigan to make it to the championship game much because of him,
Yeah.
but I didn't think he'd be like another Splash Brother. I really did. I
Yeah.
thought he'd be a good shooter, but not like not like
I was
he
always
was.
high on his shot, but his playmaking, he didn't show that very much in college. And I
Right.
haven't watched him much in the NBA, but man, when I've seen him play in the NBA, he is such a playmaker, shot creator. He's not a standstill guy like Clay.
No, it's not.
Now Clay
Right.
does he makes great cuts and things like that, but Poole, I mean,
He's a
he's really
legit
tough.
ball handler.
He is tough.
Yeah, he is. Yes. So that's another situation, and the Warriors do that. They throw guys into the fire. They get guys a lot of good playing time to develop, and then sometimes you have places like I could see Chet in a situation where maybe he doesn't play the first year, right? I call it
Mhm.
red shirting. It's not red shirting, but we've seen a lot of the guys with underdeveloped bodies come in, back injury, knee injury. They sit out the first year, and then the next year they look even better than they did when they got drafted because you're
Yep.
getting a full year of practicing with, the top 1% of
Grown
basketball
men.
players on the planet. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Even if they're not a good team, you're playing against guys every night. You got trainers that make millions of dollars to make sure your body's right, make sure you're eating right, make sure your strength and agility is how it is. So they come out looking like complete monsters after one season of sitting down. So
Yeah.
I could see him having a situation like that because I've heard about some of the teams kind of worried about his body structure. Maybe he may have a back injury or something. And I'm gonna be honest. I think a lot of times the NBA like makes up some of those things. Like, oh,
Yeah.
uh, his lower back is weak. We're afraid to put him out there because one wrong thing and he can be out. So he's just gonna sit down for a while. Like, yeah, okay. And then they
And they
come
want to
out
try
and
to
like
mess with draft stock, probably.
that too, yeah. And then they come out when they start playing and start averaging like 28. Like Michael Porter Jr. First like 5 games he looked like the best player in the NBA. So
Right.
yeah, so I could see
And
something
Clay,
like
his
that
first game
happening.
back, Clay's first
Yeah,
game back after being out for like a year, he hit was it his first game back or second? But anyways, right when he came back, he made like 7 threes
yeah. His
off
first
the
shot
bench.
was him dunking on the whole Cleveland roster.
Which they had to make sure he was 100%. That's a different type of injury. So
Yeah,
they knew that he was 100% really, but still, like you say, after long layoffs to come out and just look like a complete monster is pretty weird. But
yeah, it happens, but it happens.
yeah,
Like you said, sometimes it is them sitting them a lot longer than they need to sit. Uh, but you know how it is.
yeah,
Anyway, um, Anything else you want to touch on when it comes to the Final Four, the championship, anything?
Well, I mean, other than the fact that this North Carolina Duke game is the biggest game, it would be the biggest win for either school
I can't
of all
believe this is the
time.
first time they met in the tournament
Yeah, I
ever.
mean, I didn't want it to happen, but it's here, and now you just have to embrace it. Hope it goes your way. Uh, Duke's win over Kentucky when Leitner hit the shot was a big one, but I don't see how you could have a bigger win unless it's the national championship game, Duke versus North Carolina. Then this game right here is so big for Duke. It's so big for them to avenge their loss, Coach K's last home game, and not let him have his last loss to North Carolina. And the other way around, North Carolina has battled back from adversity. They are an 11-loss team in the Final Four with the chance to hand Coach K his last home loss and his last loss of all time. I mean, it doesn't get much more storybook for either side. And the one thing I will watch for is a letdown game for the winner of that game. It's funny to say letdown in the national championship game, but you're playing the biggest game of all time, probably the most watched college basketball game of all time. And
Yeah.
then the winner's got to turn around and play Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the winner of Kansas Villanova will be in an advantageous spot because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be hard for me to believe that the winner of Duke, North Carolina doesn't find a way to get it done on Monday night.
Yeah.
So we just have to see. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully it'll be exciting. Might not be. I just want two great games.
You're completely right about the letdown game because there's been a lot of times where the Final Four game is so exciting, it's so major, and then the championship game comes and it's like, uh, yeah, this is cool, but like it really doesn't even stack up against the Final Four game, like one of the meetings in the Final Four game. I think the Duke, the year Duke in Wisconsin, was it Duke? Yeah, I think it was Duke and Kaminsky's year.
Yes.
Yeah, that situation kind of happened that year, more or less. But that was one time I remember because I was like, man, I mean, what could possibly happen in the next game? Because the Final Four games were fantastic. You know, yeah. Duke and Butler that year too was one of those. So.
And Hayward almost hit the bank shot at the buzzer to win it. That would have been wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Yep. Cool.
Looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for coming again, man. You know, I love having you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We will definitely gonna have you back, maybe between the games, but definitely for the draft. For the yeah, 100% for the draft. Thanks for everyone for listening. Michael will be back next week. He just needed a little break. It's all good. I hold it down for him. Make sure you check out our women's basketball tournament coverage we did. Just dropped this morning, so check that out. And stay tuned for next week as we recap the Final Four games in the championship. So, again, thanks for listening. Check us out, follow us on socials, and we'll see you next time.